Hello, everyone, and welcome to Outwitting the Manipulator and outwittinrealtime.com. That's us. And I'm Dr. Dennis Becker. And next to me, and if you're not on video, you'll hear the other voice in this program, is my colleague, Robin
And
Golinski.
good day to you.
Yeah. It's always a good day when I'm with you. It's always a good day.
Oh, rainbows and sunshine. That's what you are inside and out.
For those of you who are new to us, we talk about the fun topic of manipulation. Isn't that fun? And
Well, not so much.
every
Dark clouds
podcast,
and
sure.
lightning.
Every podcast, we're here to talk with you about that lovely topic, how to protect yourself from being manipulated. Now, we realize that some people who listen to this may, in fact, be manipulators and they're learning things. But we've talked about that, Robin and I. We've decided that the most important thing is that you get some techniques for protecting yourself. And that's why we're here. Every podcast, we talk about something slightly different, and today is the same. So today we have a slightly different topic. We're not talking necessarily about the tactics that a manipulator uses or the techniques that you use to protect yourself. It's related, but it's deeper than that. So, Robin, would you introduce to us what we're talking about today?
We're going to talk about the emotional overload, emotional overwhelm. Dennis likes the word sneak attack. So, a sneak attack is what a manipulator will use to get you very emotional so that they can control you. And they know what emotion they're targeting. And oftentimes you don't even see it coming because they will often pick up a time at which you're distracted, or they're very, very calculating. Most of us, thank God, most of us do not operate that way in our relationships with human beings. But the manipulators do. They plan ahead. They know what they're going to say. That you might even know the facial expression, the gestures, the timing of what they're going to say, with the intent of making you emotionally vulnerable. And that goes across the board, positive and negative, right? It could be love bombing, or it could be a plethora of very negative emotions.
And
And
Robin,
it don't feel good.
Robin's absolutely right. It's hard. I want to reinforce what you just said. They know and they practice every single thing, including things like facial expression, even eye movement, all sorts of things where they will touch you if they touch you. How far away are they standing? How fast should they speak? I mean, all kinds of things. The average, normal, healthy person doesn't necessarily think about it all the time. Manipulators think about it all the time.
Dennis, perhaps we should differentiate. I know we often differentiate between personal and professional, but I'm thinking as you're speaking, and this is very organic. Dennis and I do not plan ahead. We come up with a topic and then it unfolds. Perhaps we should think about what I believe what you and I are talking about is somebody who's been in a longer relationship with a manipulator, because the manipulator trains you, unbeknownst to you, they can get to the point where they can shoot you a glance, or they do the slightest movement and they send you a message and they're displeased or something. But then there's the new manipulator in your life, the brand new manipulator. It could be at work, could be a professional setting, in which you don't yet realize that this is the game you're playing.
Yeah, they're actually, it's a good point, a good distinction. It's a fine distinction. If they know you for a long time or if it's just new to you. Okay. When it's new to you, they are testing you. They'll test all kinds of things to see what works. What kind of emotions do you have? What do you seem to react to emotionally? And then what kind of emotion? And how do you react? Do you smile? Do you take a step back? What do you do? Newly manipulative relationships, they're watching you. They're paying attention to what works. Now, the other extreme that Robin mentioned is when you've been in a relationship for a long time and they know you well. They know what emotions you have, what emotional reactions you have, what
they
things
learn
trigger
faster than
you.
AI, Dennis. Let's put it that way.
That's right. You can do that. So we're talking about, in a sense, both of those things, but let's focus on the one for the moment that is near you. The ones that they don't really.
You mean long term, not
Yeah,
near.
they don't quite know your emotions yet. They.
Oh, wait, you're talking about a new relationship. Let's get
No,
our language.
let's talk about the one where they've known you for quite a while. Okay.
Okay, so
And
we're
they
going to
know
talk
what
about
your
long-term
emotions are. They may know
manipulative
your emotional
relationship.
reactions, but they think they know. And so they gauge their tactics to get you to show an emotional reaction to whatever they're doing, and then they act on that reaction. And they do another, and they act on that reaction. So Robin and I have decided today that what we want to talk about, since we know that that's what happens, what can you do? How, you, if yeah,
So,
you may know that this happens, but how do you control that? How do you fix it? What do you do? That's what we're talking about here. Okay, that's a little
well,
bit different.
fixing, not so much, but how do you prepare in advance?
Yeah,
Because that's essential.
yeah,
I actually, even before that, I'd say you have to accept and understand and accept that the manipulator gets glee, glee, joy, a rush from tipping you on your back heel, pushing
yeah.
you backwards. I don't mean that literally, I mean that figuratively.
Hmm.
When they upset you or get you eating out of the palm of their hand because they're love bombing you, whatever emotion they're able to orchestrate in you brings them great joy and glee. And you have to know that and accept that, because it's very odd. It's not the norm for human behavior. And only then can you start to arm yourself, prepare, and plan ahead. Now, you're not going to plan every time, because the whole idea of this is the sneak attack, right? But we can talk about that, Dennis. Like, how do you plan ahead? The patterns,
Mm.
yes, go ahead.
But
Sorry.
what I want to say about that, Robin, quickly, is that uh, a sneak attack is a little bit different. It is a little bit different when they plan ahead and so forth. That's not necessarily a sneak attack on their part. On your part, maybe.
No, it's
But
a sneak attack for you. That's what
even
I'm
for
talking
you,
about.
even for you, sometimes it's a sneak attack because you didn't expect it.
That's the
And
point.
yes,
That's
I
why it's called
understand.
a sneak
But
attack.
what I'm suggesting is that you can protect yourself by expecting that there may be some emotional manipulation in play. If you don't expect it and you're not even thinking about it, that's a sneak attack, and they'll do that too. But
Well,
they
I
all
think I'll
what we want. Let me just finish
expand
this.
what you're
Let me
saying
finish
there
this
by
thought.
saying
I'm
you
going to finish.
have
I'm saying that in today's program, we want to talk about what can you do to protect yourself, whether it's a sneak attack or it's been planned and you've kind of experienced it. What can you do? That's what I mean,
it's
Robin.
always planned. That's the point I want to make. With the
They've always
manipulator, it's
planned.
always planned. It's a
Yes.
sneak attack for you,
Yeah, for
because
you.
one of the strategies they use is catching you off guard. That's what I mean by sneak
Yes,
attack.
yes, yes, yes.
So if you're early on in the relationship, you're gonna have way more sneak attacks than you are necessarily further in,
Mm,
although they're always changing the game and
yeah,
finding new opportunities. This is
right.
why we tell you a huge piece of this arming yourself is to identify the patterns.
Mhm,
And to identify the patterns, you do need to take notes, private
mhm,
notes about dates, times, and specifics,
mhm.
because you eventually over time you start to gaslight yourself. And I've watched this happen in real time, too much to
Yeah,
my horror, with someone I know, where one day one thing was said about XYZ happened and I didn't like it. And then a month later I said, remember when you said XYZ happened and you didn't
yeah,
like it? No, I never said that.
yeah.
No, I didn't say that.
Gaslight.
So
Mhm,
now wow, that person's in really deep, because they're
mhm,
gaslighting themselves.
mhm,
They're refusing what they saw. They now refuse to see.
mhm,
But
mhm.
so anyway, back to the emotions. It feels terrible, and it can be quite shocking. And in a professional setting, well, you're between a rock and a hard place, because you have to there's an expectation of
Yeah.
decorum, of control in a
Mhm,
professional setting.
mhm, mhm,
And it's much easier to ruffle you and have you be really rattled by it, put you on the spot,
mhm.
because there's an expectation that you're going to be controlled. So then they take pleasure in watching you struggle, because you're trying not to do something publicly in a
Yeah.
professional setting where you're going to look like the bad guy.
Mhm,
Oh,
mhm.
that's so much fun for them.
Yeah.
I feel for any of you who have a boss like this, because they also have
Yeah.
power. It's a
Hmm.
little easier when it's a peer or even somebody who's directly reporting to you, although those have different
Hmm.
challenges. But
Well, let's talk just for a very quick moment about this word that we're tossing around today, and that word is the word emotion. What the heck is an emotion? Where do they come from? How do you get them? I mean, we're not going to go into this real deep today, but let's face it, emotions are feelings, the things that you feel that happen that make you think about something that makes you feel good, feel happy, feel sad, feel bad, feel. Emotions are feelings. So understanding how you feel things and how you feel emotionally is something we want to talk about today. So we're talking
oh,
about how you feel, not necessarily how you
yes,
act.
absolutely, Dennis. And you know what? I'll just a little star and add something in here. One of the greatest gifts of a manipulator is if you use them for growth, self growth, and insight to yourself, they will fast track you on getting in touch with your feelings.
If you,
If you do the work, you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, you can be in charge of that.
somebody could be the nicest, most agreeable person in the world and start having fantasies of murder, and they go, "Oh, well, guess what? They just put you in touch with your shadow side.
That's right,
Lucky
right,
you."
right. Oh my. So, how do you control this? What can you do about any of this? Are there ways to do this to protect yourself? Are there things that you can actually do, that you can actually think? Are there ways to behave? The answer is yes to all of that. And
But
that's what
it's not gonna feel natural for
may
you.
not. That's
You're
right.
going to have to do things that you have in order to do this, you're gonna have to say and do things that don't feel comfortable or
Could be.
natural for you.
Yeah, could be. Could be. Now, what we want to help you do is make it so comfortable that it doesn't seem to be unnatural and it doesn't feel that unnatural or uncomfortable, even though it may be.
Well, practice will do that, but in the beginning,
Yeah, in the beginning, of course.
because part of it is, Dennis, as you know, like they target people who are honest,
Yeah.
nice, agreeable. That's the perfect target for a manipulator. So
Also,
you
we've
have to
talked.
advocate and
Sorry to interrupt you there, Robin.
well, you have to speak up for yourself. And that does feel very uncomfortable for people who never do that.
Yeah, and we've said to you said to you folks many times, you have to know what makes you vulnerable to this.
Yes.
In what
You have to take a little
situations
inventory of
are
that.
you most likely to be subject to an emotional attack? If we say it that way. So, where are the places that you are vulnerable? Robin, list a few of them because we all know that. How does a person
Well,
feel
I want to make it
vulnerable?
very clear that you have vulnerability if you're human, period. You could say,
Yes.
well, you think you're impermeable because you've got
Mhm.
looks and wealth and whatever. Everyone has vulnerabilities that
Right.
are already in them. Like all females are vulnerable to male aggression for the most part, right? So there's that kind of vulnerability, but then there's the vulnerability of a transient condition, like I just lost my job, I just broke up with my significant other, I just had my leg hacked off because a truck ran over me, so there's transient. My mother was just diagnosed with dementia. My
Yeah.
dog died. It goes on and on and on and on and on. So on a daily basis or on
Mm.
a
Yeah.
lifetime, there's always vulnerabilities, and this is where the manipulator pounces. I know that sounds dramatic. Dennis is the one who's calm and measured and not dramatic. I bring you the drama. They pounce if they're a really sophisticated manipulator. Oh my gosh, you're crying uncontrollably at a funeral. And I'm not saying that everybody who does this is a manipulator, but a manipulator will swoop in and out of the blue, and all of a sudden they're at your side. They want to help, they want to give you something, they want to spend time. Be aware of somebody who comes. I'd say the caveat would be that person who comes from nowhere and all of a sudden is there all the time.
Remember the opposite of funeral too. That's a sad time, as Robin was saying. You're just as vulnerable at a wedding or a baptism or any of those
Yes,
celebrations.
when you're very joyful, you're
Yes.
any.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the bottom line to both of those situations is awareness. That's
Yes.
what we want to talk to you about, being aware. Now, being aware of what? That's what we're going to get into in a few minutes here. Being aware of what? And what's that got to do with emotions and protecting yourself? Well, awareness is a big part of it. Knowing how
Sometimes that's enough, right, Dennis? So the awareness
sometimes.
and saying in your own mind, wow, like let's say like the wedding where you're really, really happy and really excited.
Hmm.
Maybe you have a friend come and hug you and I'm so happy for you. And then they make one. I just want to let you know though, your thong was sticking out in the back of your dress when you walked up the aisle. So here's what you want to look at in something like that. The timing.
Yeah.
Was it necessary or helpful for you to hear that? But if they do that and then they look at you because they want that glee of watching your balloon go, that comes from envy and jealousy. Okay, so
Yeah, but wait a minute. Before you go too far with that,
I
Robin,
know I love my
I want to
examples.
I want to go back a couple sentences because men can be very vulnerable. You were talking about women being vulnerable, or men are out to get you. Well, listen, it happens the same way with
Yeah,
women.
oh,
Men can be
absolutely.
very
Oh, I
vulnerable.
can give you those examples too.
Yeah, I know. Let's clear that. Okay, I just wanted to make it even when you go.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Okay,
It's just
all
because
right.
I'm coming from that
Okay, so
perspective
what
of being
we talk
female,
about
but
awareness. Now, what are we talking about? Being aware of what? What? Okay. There's certain things that if you aren't, you should be aware of. What are your triggers? What
yes.
is something that triggers you? What, Robin, what does that mean?
Triggers are I know. Okay, well, let's talk about I thought about this, Dennis. I thought about this for a hot minute and I'm excited about what I'm about to say next. So, and I know you're going to get excited and want to interject and I may or may not let you. I don't know right now.
Go
So,
ahead.
the triggers are we could talk about in terms of ethos, pathos and logos. So a big trigger for me if I'm ethos, if you remember, and a person who moves around, you may have to go back way back to the beginning of our podcast to understand this, but ethos people are motivated by their credibility, their reputation, ethics. It's not to say the rest of us don't have it. We do, we need it, but it's primary in them. So if I'm disrespectful toward you, if I show you you're not valued, if I don't recognize your whatever, your importance, your contribution, your fill in the blank, that's a way I can get you as an ethos person.
Because I'm vulnerable to that. Yes.
That's a bigger vulnerability to you.
Yes.
If you're
Yeah.
a pathos person, that is a person who's dominantly more emotional, which I am. The way you get to that person is, wow, it was really embarrassing the way you looked or behaved, or I'm
Hmm.
so frustrated in you. I'm so disappointed in you. I remember my father telling me that when I was 5 years old, when I stole something from my friend, which I didn't really know was stealing, but I did it. It was the first time I ever stole anything. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even handle it. I couldn't even bear the pain of my father being disappointed in me.
Hmm.
It's not going to have that same effect on the ethos or logos people. And then finally, logos people want to get things right. They want to get it correct.
Hmm.
So telling them that they're inaccurate, they're mistaken, they're wrong, that is very strong. So that's a vulnerability. So what do you do with that? Well, first you need to know yourself.
Hmm.
Which one is the one where you move the most? Because that's your biggest vulnerability.
Hmm. Are
Thank
you
you,
an
Dennis.
ethos, pathos, or logos person? And we're not going to go any deeper into that right now, but you should know
Right.
that.
You got to know that because
What
that's
are
going to be
you?
your one of your
You're
triggers.
talking about awareness. Be aware of that trigger that your manipulator will know that, and they will bring to you an ethos, pathos, or logos tactic to trigger you. Okay. So one thing that's going to be helpful is know what your triggers are. All right. A second thing that's helpful is knowing what your physical symptoms are when you get emotional. What does that
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Go ahead, Robin.
Yeah, no. It shows up. Where does it show up in your body? So
Yeah.
this is again, I go back to what I said earlier. This is the gift of the manipulator, the gift of
Yeah.
teaching you about yourself. It's almost like the friction or the resistance in a exercise, right? It's where the muscle grows. So it's the most positive spin I can put on it. Where does it show up in your body?
Yeah.
Does your voice crack and shake? Do you get a red welts up and down your neck? Do you
Hmm.
get sick to your stomach? Do your
Yeah.
knees shake? Does your hand shake? Does it start one place and then just keep going from there to you're short of breath?
Hmm. Hmm.
And
These are all physical symptoms. These are all things
yes,
that you should know about yourself. And probably you know it, but you've not really paid much attention to it. It's just a thing. It goes away, it comes and goes. But to a manipulator, it's a huge flag letting them know that you are now vulnerable.
there's
So
just
it's
there's some other things you may be doing and may not be aware of. That's how you feel in the
yeah,
inside does. But
sure.
like you know this about me, I might start picking my fingers like
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh boy, yeah. Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
you might stop making eye contact with the
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Play with
might
your hair, mess
yeah,
with your
play with your hair.
glasses,
I was gonna say
all
that
sorts of
too.
things. Right.
Yeah, so these are all what we call tells.
Yes. Now
They tell the manipulator that, "Ah, I got him
this is
now."
what we mean by awareness. Be aware of these things in yourself, about yourself. Now, that's another one. Here's another one. What kind of a story do you tell yourself about yourself?
Mm.
It's important for you to know what you think about yourself.
Oh, Lord, this is probably the hardest one of all.
Now, this is tough. And you know, you've got to be brutally honest with yourself. And well, Robin, go ahead. You want to talk about this one?
Well, I like talking about everything, but I feel like you're being awfully generous to me right now.
Go ahead.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
I appreciate you, Dennis. Yeah, the story that you tell yourself, you're living inside of it.
Hmm.
So you believe in your story so much that it's that metaphor about trying to tell a goldfish, "Hey, you're in a bowl of water," and the goldfish is looking around saying,
What are you
"What
talking about?
water? I'm not in water. I don't see
Yeah.
any water."
Yeah.
That's how close your story is to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know how you can identify your story? The stuff people have told you over and over and over again over time that you haven't wanted to hear.
Hmm. Somehow you're projecting and they're seeing it and hearing the story
They're
and they're
seeing
telling it back to you in a way.
yes,
Yeah.
that's one way.
Yeah.
It's also just checking, as Dennis and I say to each other all the time, check your mindset, check your
Yeah.
mindset. And I realize when I get into a state of impatience and frustration and I check my mindset, there's a belief behind it. There's a belief that the customer service girl is stupid. Well, one time she really super was. But okay, so there's a belief, but how am I going to behave if I believe the person's stupid?
Mhm.
Um,
How am I
you
going to
know,
behave if I believe I'm stupid?
or
That's
that,
part of
yeah,
your
even worse.
story.
Right.
That's
Or
yeah.
I
And
believe I'm incapable, or I believe
manipulator
I'm weak.
manipulator is going to pick that up easily, and
Yes.
then they use that against you. So you've got
Oh,
to
they
be
will.
aware. And here we
Yes.
go to that word awareness. You've got to be aware of all these things. What triggers you? What physical symptoms do you have? What kind of story do you tell yourself about yourself? Now, how do you do all of this? How do you learn about all this stuff? I'm going to give you the next one. I'll talk about this one, Robin. Here's another way to help with all of this. Learn how to practice mindfulness. Now, what is that? Okay, let's first of all understand it is not meditation. We're not talking about start meditating. No, we're not talking about that.
Thank goodness,
Mindful,
because I can't be quiet that long.
no, I know mindfulness is a different thing. You could probably do this one, Robin. You could probably do this. Mindfulness is a very powerful tool, and it will help you do all the other ones that we just talked about. So, what is it? How do you do it? Mindfulness means, well, let me compare it to meditation. Meditation, we all kind of know. It's being able to, make your mind clear. Don't think about anything. Just, Okay. Meditation, I know I'm overstating, making fun a little bit. I understand meditation. Mindfulness is a different thing. Mindfulness is, I am aware.
Kind of the opposite,
It's
really.
the opposite of meditation. Medicine, I'm not thinking about it. Mindfulness, you think about something, one thing. For example, washing your hands. Think about what's the temperature of the water? How does that soap feel? What finger am I doing now? Can you do that? It sounds easy to watch me do it. Try to do it sometimes. Think about only that. Or if you are swallowing something, take a drink of something, What does it feel like in your mouth? What is it touching? Where is it going? How does it feel? This is mindfulness. You give the attention to one thing only. One thing. Now, you may not be able to do it for a long time. Okay. Try it. Try it. Just
So
try it for 10 seconds. See if you think you can do it for even how am I sitting? Where's the pressure? What are my legs doing? My feet on the ground? What am I feeling against my back? Focus on one thing. Start for 10 seconds. And then the longer you can go, the more you are, what's this doing? The more you are in control of your own mind.
Okay,
You are
so
controlling the emotional
that's what
reaction
I wanted you to get to
that
is
you're having.
why should I do this?
Yes,
Why? Because
because
it's
it
a lot of
helps you to identify and control the emotional reaction. Because what's going to happen? You're washing your hands, and all of a sudden you're going to look with, oh, look at that. No, already didn't do it right. No, no matter what, you're only
so
washing
the
your hands.
devil's advocate me,
This is
Dennis.
hard.
And I know what you're saying is absolutely powerful and it works. But the devil's advocate, me thinking of listeners who maybe are in a very manipulative relationship, would say, I can't think about washing my hands because I have to be paying very close attention to everything that's going on in the background,
Yeah.
hyper vigilant about what the manipulator is going to say and do next. And if I
Okay.
do that, if I focus on
Now,
something that's only about me and being very present about washing my hands, something's going to go down that I'm not prepared for.
aha, now
What
there's
do
the
you say to
key.
that?
There's the key. I'm not prepared for. How can you be prepared for it? Something's happening. Maybe two or three things are happening at one time. Okay. So mindfulness is not
Well,
something,
when you're
mindfulness is not something that you're going to be necessarily doing during an attack,
right.
a tactical attack. Mindfulness is something that helps you learn how to control, not looking at something else when you're washing your hands. No, do it again. Do it with simple things, easy things that you're already very familiar with. Chances are you're already doing it. You're brushing your teeth and you're not necessarily thinking of anything else. Try thinking about just brushing your teeth. What does it feel like? What does it taste like? That one thing, even if it's only for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, that is telling your mind, your brain is telling your mind, I am in control now. I will not look at that other thing. I will not feel this. I will do this. Okay, now,
Well,
how does that apply?
okay.
How does that apply? Let me just make this connection. How does
Okay.
that apply? Now, when the time comes that a tactic is coming at you, you will be able to focus on the tactic and the feeling that you're having and the ability to control it and not be attracted to whatever the manipulator's doing. I'll finish there, Robin. You go ahead.
Absolutely. That's the dot I wanted you to connect. That is where the power of that is.
Yeah.
And by what you said, Dennis, I mean, it's just I think of all the things we've told people that's one of the top five, top three techniques, because when it happens when you're with the manipulators, you're in constant fight or flight and they occupy all the real estate in your brain.
They want
So
to.
you're either processing what they said in the past and whether it was right or wrong and whether you reacted appropriately or what you're going to say next time and why did they say that and they hurt my feelings, and you're spending all your time on that. Or you're in the future saying, oh my gosh, when they get home, I'm going to tell them how I feel, and here's how I'm going to say it, and let me practice it again in my brain because this time it's going to work. And that's how they get in your brain. That's how they gain control over you, because every waking moment, everything you're saying, doing, thinking, feeling starts to be filtered through how it will affect them. So I can tell you, if you are focused on your hands, washing your hands, the manipulator would hate that because they want you to be focused on them every minute of the day.
Okay, now let's make that clear. When the tactic is coming at you, you're not thinking about washing your hands. That's not
No,
what you're doing.
but there is a
You
detachment
have
that you,
used that
yeah,
practice that you did yesterday, the day night before, that you do all the time, and practiced it on anything: music, sitting, walking, thinking, eating, everything. When you practice it on everything, when that tactic comes, you'll be able to do the same thing. Now, you won't be thinking about washing your hands. What will you do? You will control the emotions. One of the first, what we
you'll
say,
be able to stay in
knowing your
neutral.
triggers. You will know what your trigger is. You can focus on that one thing. Trigger,
That's
emotion,
right.
my reaction. That's what you'll be able to do because you have trained your mind and your brain to not be taken away from you by the tactic that manipulator is using. And this doesn't come easy, folks. We know that. You're going to have to practice it a long time, but it's not meditation. Remember, it's the
Right.
opposite. Focus on one thing and learn how to
You'll develop
control
the
that.
strength of that muscle.
That's right. So when the
And
tactic comes,
staying in
keep it
neutral,
there.
it'll help you stay in neutral, which I want to remind you, when you stay in neutral and you're not reacting to them, that disempowers them.
Mm-hmm,
And what do? They escalate.
mm-hmm,
They escalate quickly. So we only have a minute left here. I'm going to leave it there. Be prepared to view the escalation as success on your part and continue to maintain your neutrality. But you got to practice, like Dennis said. You got
mm-hmm.
to practice all the time.
It is possible to control your emotions. It's totally possible, and not use them, not allow them to be used to control you. This is what we're suggesting. Awareness, practice the things that we've talked about, know your triggers, all the rest of it. Practice that mindfulness. This will work, but you've got to practice. It's not easy. Now, Robin, last minute before you go, tell them how they can reach us and what we should be doing. What should they look for?
Okay,
Website.
right before I say that, I'm going to say not only is it possible, you are personally
Yeah,
responsible for controlling your
for
emotions.
you. Yeah. You're
You're
the
not
boss
a
of you.
victim. You're
Yeah.
not helpless.
No.
You are responsible for it.
Yeah.
Okay. You can find us at Outwit in Real Time. That's our website. You can reach us there. You can see, you can book a coaching call. You can book a free 15-minute assessment call with us. And you can find workshops that we offer. You can also hire us. Dennis and I are communication coaches, and we do workshops in corporations all the time. Not a manipulation on
Sometimes.
every other communication thing, but we're happy to do that as well.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's that
All
simple.
right.
Outwit in
Well,
real time. Well, we're
out
up, Dennis.
and
Another
remember our
Friday.
book, Outwitting the Manipulator, Protecting Yourself in Real Time. That's us.
Yes.
And thank you for being with us again this episode. We hope to see and hear you again in the next one. And until we do, the old clock on the wall tells us we have to get out the door right now. And you're hearing me. I'm Dr. Dennis Becker. My colleague that you have been listening to is Robin Golinski. Thanks for being with us, and bye for now.